All right, guys. So here we go. The other, over the weekend, on Saturday, I believe it was, we had the South Carolina Republican primary, and the results are very interesting. So let's start with this here. Trump won. Duh. It was 59.8% to Nikki Haley's 39.5%. So Nikki Haley got 3 delegates. Trump got 47 delegates. Trump got 451,905 votes. Nikki Haley got 298,681 votes. Now, look, no denying it. Massive win for Trump. We're at the point now where there is no debate. There is no conversation. There is no, well, maybe in this potential scenario, blah, 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 and somebody else can jujitsu and win. It's not happening. Trump has to die or go to prison to not be the guy. It is that simple, okay? So that's the first point to make. Very, very obvious point. But let's dive into the specific numbers to see how this bodes for a potential general election matchup. Because again, Trump bars either death or prison. He's the guy, right? So in the CNN exit polls in the South Carolina primary, white evangelical Christians, among them 75% supported Trump, 24% supported Haley. So Trump cleaned up with white evangelicals. Among everybody else, Haley got 51% and Trump got 49%. So she actually won with people who are not white evangelical Christians. Okay, well, that's an interesting data point. We also have this. So Trump won South Carolina by a wide margin, but there were some warning signs in exit polls. So among Haley voters, if Trump wins the nomination, only 21% of them will be satisfied with that. 78% of them would be dissatisfied with that. When you ask these people, is Trump fit for the presidency if convicted of a crime? Only 15% say yes, and 82% say no. Okay, interesting. This is probably the biggest point right here. So in the Iowa caucus, the final average of the polls had Trump plus 37 points over Ron DeSantis. The actual result in the Iowa caucus, Trump finished plus 30. So in other words, the polls gave him 7 percentage points more than he ended up actually getting, okay? In New Hampshire, the final average of the polls had Trump plus 18. The final result was Trump plus 11. Again, sensing a pattern here, he's overvalued by 7 percentage points. South Carolina primary, the final average had Trump plus 28. The final result was Trump plus 20. So again, the polls overestimated him by 8 percentage points. This, guys, for a general election, is a big deal. Let's be clear. Now, we're gonna bring up Biden. We're gonna have the conversation about Biden as well in just a second, because he also has massive, massive general election weaknesses, as we've discussed ad nauseum, ad infinitum on this show. But this is not discussed anywhere near as much. The fact that when you dig into the specific numbers vis-a-vis Trump, he actually is showing some weakness for a general election. So look at this. 59% of Nikki Haley's voters say they won't support Trump in the general election if he is the Republican nominee. And that mirrors what we saw in Iowa and New Hampshire. Okay, so now let me give you, this is just one to end on here that I wanted to share with you. Biden and Trump's biggest weaknesses. Trump is not ethical. 68% say Trump is not ethical. And 67% say Biden's too old to serve another term. So look, here's the bottom line. Here's what we're looking at here. The Republicans are in a little bit of a pickle when it comes to Trump, because it's almost like they can't win with him. They can't win without him. And this is what we saw in 2020. This is what we saw in 2022. This is what we've seen in the special elections with the Democrat versus the Trumpy type candidates. He really puts them in a bind because he has enough support and his base is strong enough to easily win these primary contests. But at the same time, when you're a de facto incumbent, right, and you're getting 55%, 60% of the vote, and that stays steady, that doesn't bode well for a general election, because the 40% of the Republican Party that isn't with you, there's all these data points that are screaming from the rooftops that they're effectively saying, I will never be with you. I will never be with you. I think you're a criminal. You know, you have 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. You're not ethical. They view his people as like, an extremist cabal controlling the Republican Party. They look at the base with skepticism now and scorn and derision. And there was another interesting thing. I don't have this pulled up here, but Kiowa Island, South Carolina, Romney won it in 2012 by a very, very wide margin. Trump won it in 2016 by 10 to 15 points, something in that range. 2020, it became like a swing district. And then in 2022, Democrats were like plus 30 or something like that. So this is like an upper income suburban area in South Carolina. And it went from solidly Republican to now these, suburban, highly educated voters are they're like, we'll take any Democrat over Trump and Trumpism. And this is the thing that Trump has to worry about, is that when you're in a position where it's all, your whole base is the white evangelical Christians. They're the ones who love you to death. Well, there's not enough of those in the country to get you across the finish line. There's just not. When you are such a divisive character that, 40% of your own party is like, I can't do it. That doesn't bode well. So in other words, look, he has his cult, he has his strong base, but that is all he has. That's all he has. And that's a weakness for the general election. Now, again, for Biden, he has similar problems, man. Arab Americans and Muslim Americans, they turned on him over the genocide in Gaza. That's absolutely going to affect him in Michigan. In fact, Democrats are looking for another path to try to win in Michigan, thinking they're too far gone. We're never going to get them. Young voters, very, very skeptical. Biden's approval rating overall in the 30s. Like these things, we are looking at an election where it is the two weakest candidates of all time. I mean, this honestly dwarfs the 2016 election, which at the time we saw and thought these are the two weakest candidates of all time. It's a matter of who is disliked the least for that election. I mean, that's the idea, right? Now, I think we've surpassed that election because the marks against these two guys it's astonishing. It's astonishing. Biden being way too old, not being able to complete a sentence, doing horrible with independence, approval rating down in the 30s, young voters and Arab and Muslim American voters, huge, huge red flags. With Trump, huge red flags in the sense that independents hate him, suburbanites hate him, non-evangelicals, non-hardcore base types hate him. And this is all being reflected in the numbers. So it'll be an interesting general election, assuming both of these idiots survive to get to it. But it is who does America hate the least? You want the guy with 91 criminal charges who's totally unethical and extremist, or you want the old man who can't complete a sentence and pisses off his own base on a daily basis? That's what it's going to come down to. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.